First things first, we're going to go in and actually try to figure out how we're going to paint these things. And we're going to have our color paints and ready stuff to go. So here I've got a water bucket. And then I also have some paints right here. So I'm going to jump out to a little bit overhead view so that way we can see a little bit better and we can see what we've got going on. So let's go ahead and start with our base watercolor tray. This is a very nice tray. I have some different types of watercolors. Some are more advanced than others. I do have trays like these that are some of my mobile or portable trays that are usually very messy because I just use mine directly. And then I have some small ones. And then I also have very, very large trays. Watercolors come in a variety of ways to use them. For me, I tend to use smaller stuff, but you can also use watercolor color pencils. But let's start by watercolor. Hopefully your water's a lot cleaner than that. I've been painting this morning, so it's a little dirty, but it's fine right now. I can always go clean it, or I can pause and clean it. But the first thing I want to do is just get some water, and we're going to do what's called charging. I just rinse my brush every time, and I just put one little dab of water in each color in the tray. And all that's going to do, notice how I'm cleaning after each one, is I'm just charging up the tray. It's almost like plugging it in and getting it started. Notice I didn't do anything with brown and black because they're not really on the color wheel, all right? So the thing to do with color wheel is one, make sure you're in the right spot in the right zone. Also be careful dragging your color palette over your watercolor because you might spill or make a little mess. I'm going to tell you that Georgia O'Keeffe was a master watercolor person, and she was very big on keeping her colors clean, which was bizarre because her paintings are immense, and I'm not surprised at all. So we're going to start here with yellow. So guess what? My brush is clean, and I'm going to start with yellow. What I like to do is just add a little bit of water to this shape, just a little bit. And the reason why I do that is because I want to paint in just this spot. Now, if I'm not careful and I get two paints together, two sections of water, one will bleed over into the other. So I've got a little bit of water here, and I don't tap on my bucket because I can spray water. I just wipe. And also you're going to have your best friend over here, which are Kleenex, or I usually carry a roll of toilet paper with me because I like to blot. So I'm going to go ahead and drop into the yellow. Look how wet that yellow is. It's a nice juicy color, as Charles Reed would always say in his videos. Very famous watercolor artist. I'm just going to lay down this yellow and see how it just kind of bleeds through because I already put water down. Now what I need to do is make sure I have a nice even layer all the way across. And as I'm moving this water color around, notice I'm not dipping back in. I've got enough paint on here that I could keep it moving around and it's nice and even. What we're trying to get is what we call a flat wash, flat, even color. Rinse the brush, rinse the brush, rinse the brush, maybe wipe off. I don't know, maybe do a little blotting, practice a little bit of that, just kind of soaking up the paint on there or the water. I'm going to go right to red, but this time I'm not going to put any water down. I want you to try and see what'll happen. Sometimes it works really well for you. So if you do this, you will notice that this is more of the dry way of putting stuff down. But as long as you keep the watercolor moving, it will work evenly for you. It will work nice and smooth. If you get a little dab off like I just did right there, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little tiny hint right there. Don't worry about it. This is why we practice. Now I got a nice even bead right there. Rinse my brush, rinse my brush, rinse my brush. Wipe, wipe, wipe. I do feel better popping down the water, so I'm just going to put a little bit of water down right here on my blue. We're just going to start with the red, yellow, and blue. That's all we're going to do, no other colors. And now grab some of my blue. I love this. When you put it in there, it should bleed out like that. Isn't that wonderful? That's the wet on wet technique. And it all just kind of smooths out. It's kind of like it's like some sort of psychedelic painting. I love it. We're going to go up and then around. And there we go. Nice even blue. If for some reason I've left some dots in there, I can move those to the edge. And I can suck them up with just a little bit of the dryer brush, and it's going to pick up some of the pigment from that. There we go. Now notice that blue does not look as dark as this blue in the watercolor tray. That blue in the watercolor tray looks almost black. But that's because the white of the watercolor, of the paper, is actually using that to create what we call a tint. Just a tint, which is very nice. So let's go ahead and, now that we're feeling comfortable, let's go ahead and do our secondary colors, right? Be careful not to rest your hand inside one of your colors. All right, so I'm going to lay this down, just a little bit of color. And if you've gotten a mess in your watercolor water, just go ahead and change your water. You want lots of clean water. When you're first starting out, try to keep your stuff as clean as possible. Once you get a little more into it, you can be a lot more adventurous. I'm going to go ahead and do orange. Move that orange around in that little tiny shape. Maintaining control of my paintbrush. Some people like to grip the paintbrush down here at the hand grip. Some people are just using the very back handle. That's okay. Experiment. Figure out what works for you. And red, yellow, blue, orange, green. I'll just put a little in there because I've got some nice green right there. Green and then violet. The thing about watercolor is it is about 90% water, 10% pigment, okay? So if you get a color that's so heavy, what'll happen is you think it's going down dark. All it's doing is it's just being sticky because you can go back and rework watercolors. You can go back and rework them, and then they'll come out and then they'll get darker. I mean, they'll get lighter, and you can move that water around to thin it out. And sometimes when it's really thick on paper, it's just very gross. And if it does get wet, it'll stick to another piece, which we're trying to avoid. A little bit of violet. Ooh, violet is a very, very powerful color. So I'm going to actually rinse it out just a little bit, just so I can just move my color around a little bit. Now, what I've seen sometimes, and I've done this myself, is I will make a mistake and I will put the color in the wrong section. Oh, on a painting, it's not that bad. You could play with that and go, you know what? I'm going to adjust those colors and just go with it. In a color wheel, it really kind of affects the way it works. So if that does happen, you can just try again. Or you could say, you know what? If I put the violet here with the blue violet, I would probably scoop some of that color up the best I could, add more water, and then try to add a little blue just to create blue and the violet, because that's all that those colors are. These colors here are made by mixing two of the colors together, which we will do in just a minute. We're going to let this whole thing dry right now because this is still wet. This is a little bit wet, and you can always test by putting the back of your hand on your painting. If you're not sure, just be careful. If it's really wet, it'll stain your hand. But if it feels a little cool to the touch, then you know that your painting is not dry. All right, so this color, we're going to do yellow, green, blue, violet, red, orange, and yellow, orange in just 1 minute. So we're going to take a break. I'm going to change my water out too. So we'll stop right here and go to the next video.